Now, the ultimate question asked by believers and skeptics alike has to do with how the cards or the zodiac actually enable prediction and how they give any kind of insight into the character, personality, vocation, and destiny of an individual. This question has not been dealt with appropriately by most writers. The answer should be known to those within the cognitive sciences, such as behaviorists and psychologists. But unfortunately, most of those who have expertise in these fields are not that much interested in occultism or divination. So, a simple discovery becomes again a mystery due to the divisional and exclusionary nature of human studies. In order for the tarot and astrology to work, they must have an intimate connection to human consciousness. In fact, we cannot understand the nature of the tarot or the zodiac without understanding something about the origin and evolution of consciousness. Now, we humans possess an inner sense of knowing. Some have called this the intuition, some the still small voice, or guardian angel. Others call it the God force. Skeptics are more inclined to call it instinct, but nevertheless, they cannot doubt that in certain important scenarios of life, some kind of superordinate intelligence kicks in for our well-being and protection. Now, regardless of the epithets or terminology, this force does indeed exist. Then we have to find out how it came into existence, how it operates, and how we can get into direct communication with it. The entire taroscopic system rests on these three questions, or themes, which go directly to the heart of the connection between the divination arts and human consciousness. The proof concerning the connection between the tarot, the zodiac, and human consciousness is best explained through the means of numerical analogy. Numbers are the means by which we give expression to energies, those of a mundane or supermundane nature. This is why certain numbers were associated with so-called angels and so-called devils. Originally, consciousness was merely a primitive sensory response mechanism. The neocortex did not exist. The mammalian brain did not exist. And thought, as we know it, was non-existent. Consciousness, for want of a word, was at the rudimentary or primal stage. The cerebral spinal system was then a single fragile ganglion. It is from this rudimentary state that we have inherited our understanding of oneness. This state grew out of and recognized the zero, that is, the protean uroboric pleromic state. Strangely, though no one can conceive or point to something that is actually a nothing, we do have the concept embedded within our minds. We do so because of the fact that consciousness arose from a state that it now, due to its own dialectical proclivities, can only conceive as a nothing. This nothingness was often symbolized in ancient times by the waters of the primordial abyss, and by creatures such as the snake, the crocodile, the reptile, or other demonic entities. We still use the term reptilian or mammalian to connote this primal cognitive stage of the brain. This single ganglion, the rudimentary ego, was oriented towards the inner world of the id, that is, towards the unconscious. We can imagine it, as the Egyptians did, as a single infinitely delicate petal upon a single lotus or papyrus stem rising out of the waters of oblivion. Now, from this stage of singularity, there arose a secondary apparatus. This was to furnish a center which could respond to external phenomena and to the external world of reality. With the advent of this ganglion, we have the primal bifurcation pictorialized and odd in all the cosmogenic myths and religions. It is the act of primal scission that the book of Genesis depicts, as well as any other myth that speaks of dividing waters or dividing luminaries. We read that the light separates from the darkness, and that the heavens separated from the earth, and the sun divides from the moon, and that male divides from female. And we have all through the world's mythology the recurrent motif of the twins. We read of the evil Set and his good twin Osiris or Horus. We read of Cain and Abel, Christ and Satan, Adam and Eve, Enlil and Enki, Jacob and Esau, Arthur and Mordred, Sir Balan and Sir Balin, Tristram and Mark, Odin and Loki, etc., etc. We read in Celtic fairy legends of the light and dark sisters. It is a theme of art both high and not so high. From this bicamerality, we inherit the a priori category of two-ness. The entelechy continued through the centuries, and from the two, like a fleur-de-lis, there arose a third apparatus, which had the job of administration, of processing and synthesizing the experiences and intelligences of the two antecedent ganglia. Thus arose the important concept of threeness, where consciousness rested for a time. It was relatively harmonious and stable. The titanic and threatening forces from within and without, which assaulted the vulnerable ego, were now kept somewhat at bay. This is why even today threeness is considered an archetype of harmony and beauty. From members of the Christian religion, we hear of the Trinity, which is, despite its dressing, a commemoration of this stage of consciousness. Now from the three, there came forth the four. This was the final steadying, organizing principle that was the necessary consummation of the previous stages. Consciousness is, today, still at the level of the fourfold, and this is why the cross and its various analogues is so cardinal and seminal a symbol, not only for Christians, but for the Celts and the Teutons, the Native American Indians, the Tibetans, the Maya, and other ancient peoples. All competent psychologists know of the four great hemispheres or modalities of modern consciousness. Carl Jung named them the intuitional self, the rational self, the emotional self, and the sensational self. So when we see the magician in the tarot with the symbols of the four suits on his table, we're looking at a disguised image of the union of consciousness, an act always associated with magic and the province of the master magi. The Christ on the cross, or with his four evangelists, the Pharaoh on the fourfold cube, Osiris with his four sons, the Joker in the common deck dressed in his four colors, the Indians with their four directions, the dancing divas of India with their four arms, the dance of Shiva with his square cross legs, and the plethora of other quartering motifs. We understand that what is being expressed is the magnum opus, the uniting of four hemispheres of consciousness. This is the true meaning of dying on the cross. And those familiar with the imagery of the major arcana of the tarot will recall how often figures are shown with their legs crossed at the 90-degree angle, or how the square and triangle geometry is subtly incorporated into the designs. The tarot was designed to pictorialize the great journey, the ascent and development of human ego consciousness, briefly outlined here.